and welcome to Lost in Science for another week. Thank you for joining us. My name is Claire, and this week on the show we have a very special guest in the studio. Is that right, Chris?
Yes, we have Dr. Gregory Crocetti, who is a biologist from the art science collective, the Scale Free Network. They often write books and graphic novels and this kind of stuff about microbes.
Yes, of course. I remember Greg's amazing graphic novel from a couple of years ago.
The Invisible War?
The Invisible War!
Yes, we got to give it some mention today because we're talking about a bacterial infection, but a serious kind of one that is affecting people in Pakistan at the moment. It is typhoid fever that is extensively drug resistant, which means that it is basically resistant to just about all the antibiotics. Not all, just about all the antibiotics.
Nearly all the antibiotics.
Yeah, so it's a pretty serious public health crisis there in Pakistan.
That sounds awful.
Yeah, it's a good story though. We talk about what's happening, how this comes about, and what can be done.
Well, we will listen to that with great interest. And Stu, what do you have for us this week?
Well, I was doing some reading, and, if you're concerned about maybe travelling to Pakistan now that you've heard that there's a typhoid epidemic over there, maybe my story will put you off travelling to Pakistan or anywhere else for that matter.
So typhoid fever is not going to put you off travelling?
Not a good enough reason.
Okay.
Not a good enough reason. So I'm actually talking about how does global international travel affect the environment, in particular, how much of an impact does it have on total greenhouse gas emissions all over the world? And the answer is a lot more than we thought it did.
So someone has actually crunched the data on this?
Yes, they've spent a year and a half crunching the data, and they've figured out that, there's a lot more greenhouse gas emissions attributable to international tourism.
Well, in that case, unpack your suitcases and stick around for the next half hour. On with the show.
Okay, you are listening to Lost in Science. My name is Chris, and today I am talking to Dr. Gregory Crocetti from the Art Science Collective Scale Free Network, and we are here to talk about the recent news of an epidemic of extensively drug-resistant typhoid in Pakistan.
Hi, Chris.
Welcome to Lost in Science, Gregory.
Thanks.
Yes, good to have you here. So, look, can you, for those who have not been following the story, can you just give us a bit of a rundown of what is this epidemic? What's going on?
So one particular region of Pakistan, epidemic of typhoid has emerged. Researchers have used a combination of genomics and microbiology to pinpoint the strain and why this strain is so nasty. And it basically this particular strain of Salmonella typhi, full name Salmonella enterica, subspecies enterica, Cerevar typhi, it has an extraordinary cocktail of, or weaponry, arsenal is the word I'm looking for, of antimicrobial resistance genes.
Okay, so hang on, let's go back a second now. So this is typhoid fever, is that right?
Yep.
What is typhoid fever?
Typhoid fever, it's a disease caused by Salmonella typhi or Salmonella paratyphi that takes anywhere from 1 to 3 weeks to emerge. It'll first emerge as a fever, and then it will present basically the salmonella get into your reticuloendothelial system and your lymphoid tissue, basically your immune system.
Okay.
They get into your, particularly like things like your macrophages, and they start breeding. And within a week or two, you're starting to get this disease, and it can result in a range of things like encephalitis, bronchitis, a lot of bleeding from your gut, and so you just get sicker and sicker, you get more dehydrated, and unless you're treated with antibiotics, there's a 1 in 100 to 1 in 10 sort of chance that you might die.
Okay. Is it the same? You said salmonella. Is it the same as the salmonella that people are familiar with in terms of food poisoning and that kind of stuff? Or is this sort of different strain or?
No, the food poisoning salmonella is, I believe it's Salmonella enteritidis. And that will just breed they'll multiply in your small intestine if you don't handle your food properly. And over the period of sort of half a day to 2 days, and give you cramps, vomiting, diarrhea, and usually just wash itself away, clear itself away.
Okay. Now, so this one, which is it attacks the immune system, they're calling it extensively drug resistant. I'm sure we've all heard of superbugs, which, what people commonly call bacteria that is resistant to antibiotics. What does extensively drug resistant mean?
Yeah, so the salmonella story is really like the paradigm of the sanitary era, where it's been endemic in the global south or the deindustrialized world, or the developing world for still to this day. In the global north, with vaccinations, clean water, sanitation, we don't see it. We don't see epidemics of this since the antibiotic era. So, 1948, the first of the antibiotics we used against salmonella was cephalosporin, and it was really successful in killing Salmonella typhi. And that was working for a couple of decades, but then in the 1970s, resistance started to emerge. There was a big outbreak in Mexico, but the scientists had already started testing and basically had amoxicillin and a trimethoprim cocktail ready to bring in, and it worked. And so then we were good for another couple of decades, but then resistance to those developed. But then by the 90s, we had resistance to amoxicillin, ampicillin, and then by the turn of the millennium, there's resistance to ciprofloxacin, fluoroquinolones, and we were basically left with cephalosporin. And these are the frontline antibiotics.
Right.
So these are oral antibiotics that are fairly affordable and fairly, able to be used across the world.
Okay. These are the kind of things that if you had an infection now and you went to the GP, they might give you these?
Yeah, absolutely. This is what would be used all over the world. But yeah, over the years, the cost of producing some of these antibiotics has risen. And we're basically at a point now with this extensively drug-resistant Salmonella typhi. It's resistant to all of the first-line antibiotics except one, azithromycin. So, and this is really what the warning here is that if we're not really careful, the dire conditions of this strain could spread globally especially through the global south, because after this frontline antibiotics, all that's left is a handful of really expensive intravenous antibiotics that carry side effects. And so the costs are prohibitively expensive for use in most parts of the world.
Okay. Just out of curiosity, so if this is called extensively drug resistant because it's resistant just about everything, when it is actually resistant to everything, is there another name for it? Is it like a extra level?
I don't know. Maybe we'll call it total drug resistant, TDR or something. I honestly don't know. I don't know if we're quite there yet. Sorry?
Let's hope we don't find out.
Oh, God, yeah.
You are listening to Lost in Science. My name is Chris, and today I am talking to Dr. Gregory Crocetti. Now, the idea of bacteria becoming resistant to antibiotics, I suppose this is, it sounds like a fairly straightforward kind of example of evolution through natural selection, survival of the fittest. Those that are resistant to the drugs supposed to kill them will obviously be the ones that survive. But it's more complicated than that, isn't it? They can get these traits in other ways.
Yeah. I think it's interesting. I mean, when you allude to Darwinian sort of evolutionary theory and survival of the fittest, it notoriously fails to talk about those theories have notoriously failed to talk about horizontal gene transfer, which is really what the most important factor when it comes to antibiotic resistance and antimicrobial resistance, because bacteria in particular are extremely promiscuous at sharing genes and through just picking them up randomly, but also through sex.
Okay, I want to know how this works, and particularly the idea of bacteria having sex, because we're talking about cross-species sex, and also this idea of picking them up as well. It's like, are they just lying around? I mean, there's so many questions here. How does this work?
When bacterium dies, its membrane will open most of the time, and its genome will become exposed to the environment and to other microbes, and so its DNA, its genes are up for grabs. So that's one way, is that just basically free DNA, and bacteria, that's called transformation. Bacteria can just pick up free DNA sometimes. Viruses can carry transduction. Viruses can carry DNA from one microbe to another. But the thing that's clear here with this Salmonella typhi is these massive plasmids. So plasmids are circularized DNA, small pieces of circularized DNA. In this case, it's quite a large piece of circular DNA that bacteria will often pass from one to the other through conjugation. And conjugal, it infers that sex.
So
basically.
why would they be doing this like I said, other species?
Well, yeah, the conjugation tends not to happen so much from between species, but plasmids, like free DNA plasmids, can float around in the environment and potentially be picked up, and it's a good way of sort of carrying the entire arsenal of antibiotic resistance genes. Although in this case, actually, many of the antibiotic resistance genes are also on the genomes of these Salmonella typhi. Okay. So yeah, there's resistance genes all over the place, which is probably going to make it hard to combat them into the future.
Okay. You are listening to Lost in Science, and we are speaking to Dr. Gregory Crocetti about antibiotic resistance, in particular, extensively drug-resistant typhoid epidemic. Okay, so you said that a lot of the genes, the drug resistance genes, were already in this particular strain of Salmonella, but where did it pick up the missing pieces, like the extra bits? Have they figured that out?
Where did they get them from?
Yeah.
I'm not really sure. I guess the
I guess so. I saw one of their papers where one of their theories was they said they came from E. coli.
Yes, that's true. So the enterobacteria include E. coli, Salmonella, Shigella, Vibrio. They're very closely related. So
what's
Vibrio cholera.
Enterobacteria?
It's the family of bacteria.
Okay.
That family is they cause some of the worst diseases. So dysentery, Shigella causes dysentery. Vibrio cholera can cause cholera. Those microbes have been transmitted through human populations for millennia, fecal-oral transmission. They have a natural reservoir in our gut, and it's good not to say that it doesn't help to say that bacteria are bad or good, exclusively bad or good. They have a place in us and around us, especially things like E. coli. It's hard to think of Salmonella and Shigella as good in any context. But so we've been throwing the more we throw antibiotics at these particular bacteria, the more that they can find or evolve resistance to these antibiotics, and that resistance is conferred through genes, and those genes will often get swapped and traded, especially in times of stress when you're targeting them.
Okay.
And the tragedy with the way we've used antibiotics over the years is that, especially in places like South Asia, there's been suboptimal dosing. Try and save money by using half the concentration. But I can't think of a better way of breeding antibiotic resistance really than using ineffectively low doses.
So you've got something that doesn't kill all the infection and gives them a chance to get stronger.
To get stronger.
Okay.
Exactly.
Now, I know that the sort of work that you guys do at the Scale Free Network, you write, produce books and artwork and this sort of stuff, a lot of about microbes and particularly the good microbes. So a lot of them are good, but you're saying E. coli can be good?
Oh, absolutely. E. coli has a natural place in our gut. It's only very occasionally that a strain can turn around and can cause disease. But they generally do have a role in our gut. I think they make vitamin K and one of the B vitamins.
Okay.
From parts from nutrients in our food. So
most of the stuff that lives in our gut is our friends.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean that is a message that is always worth repeating. Is that 99.99999 I could continue % of microbes on Earth are good for us, and we have misused this is absolutely about our misuse of antibiotics and our misunderstanding of these microbes that is causing this problem. Mm-hmm. We've caused this problem for ourselves.
But on the other hand, life before antibiotics there was many more infections, and we're possibly facing that again in the future. So what can we do in this situation? What can we do when we're facing this kind of multiple drug-resistant, extensively drug-resistant infections?
Well, with Salmonella typhi, with typhoid fever, the solution is pretty simple. We need clean water. Everyone in the world, should have clean water, access to clean water and sanitation.
Because it's spread through like feces, isn't it?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So, that's why in the global north, in places like Australia and Europe, and we don't have typhoid fever spreading around. A case or two might emerge, but it won't turn into an epidemic because we have good sanitation and hygiene in place. And so that's the concern here is really for Asia, South Asia in particular, Sub-Saharan Africa, that we'll see epidemics popping up where they just don't have good sanitation.
Okay. Is vaccination a possibility with these kind of, as a preventative measure?
Yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah, vaccination can definitely help protect from Salmonella typhi. I don't think it works against Salmonella paratyphi. So if these genes, if this plasmid, if these resistance genes jump over to its cousin, we won't have a vaccine against that.
So I guess that sort of that sanitation and the vaccinations, there's like preventative measures. What about actually fighting infections? When the antibiotics run out, what are our options? Is it new antibiotics? Are there alternatives?
I'm not aware of any new antibiotics in the pipeline. As I mentioned earlier, if you have access to enough money, if you live in a wealthy part of the world, you'd probably go on some intravenous antibiotics and to treat typhoid. But the best hope, one of the best hopes that's out there is things like phage therapy. We are trying different approaches. Scientists are finally starting to really think about alternatives to antibiotics because it doesn't look like no new ones have really emerged in the last 2 or 3 decades, and certainly the pharmaceutical industry hasn't funded that research. So it's not to say they're not out there. But, bacteriophage therapy, using the viruses of bacteria to attack the bacteria.
So these are the bugs that prey on the bacteria. You get them on our side, essentially.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. The ancient proverb, the enemy of my enemy is my friend.
Yep.
These viruses absolutely can help us. And I'm not sure how effective they'd be against Salmonella, but there's hope.
Yep. And this is something that you covered in your graphic novel, The Invisible War, I believe.
Yeah, exactly. It was, and this is, I think, why I'm so interested in typhoid is that it really isn't. Salmonella and Shigella are so similar in that way, in that they have a really special relationship to crowded, stressful, and malnourished conditions. And war, World War I was that condition with where Shigella dysentery was just so prevalent. and killed as many people as bullets and bombs in some parts of the war, like Gallipoli.
Okay.
And so we talk about the discovery of bacteriophage and the emergence of it in this particular nurse's gut that can kill off this Shigella and saves their life. Spoiler alert.
Well, it's a happy ending. We like that. Okay, where can people find out more about your books and your work and this sort of thing?
Probably the best place to go is scalefreenetwork.com.au.
Okay.
To our website.
Brilliant. We might put a link up to that on our podcast page. Well, thank you for coming in, Gregory. Always good to talk to you.
Thanks for having me.
That was Dr. Gregory Crocetti from the Scale Free Network.
Come fly with me, let's fly away. If you can use some exotic booze, there's a bar in far Bombay. Come fly with me, let's fly away. Come fly with me, let's float down to Peru. In Llama Land, there's a one-man band and he'll toot his flute for you. Come fly with me, let's take off in the blue. Once I get you up there where the air is rarefied, we'll just glide starry-eyed. Once I get you up there, I'll be holding you so near. You may hear angels cheer, 'cause we're together. Weather-wise, it's such a lovely day. Just say the words and we'll beat the birds down to Acapulco Bay. It's perfect.
I'm probably showing my age, but when I was a kid in the 1980s, people going overseas for holidays was something of a rarity. I remember another kid from school went to Disneyland, and it might as well have been a trip to the moon as far as I was concerned.
Totally. I mean, kids came back from the States and it was like they were a year and a half ahead of us. They were just like, look, all this cool stuff that the States has.
Yeah.
We're going to get it in a year and a half.
Yeah, they've got this thing called the internet.
Yeah.
No, not in the 80s. Although it did exist in some degree. But so since the 1970s, international travel has become far more commonplace, particularly with the cost of air travel itself becoming much cheaper in the last couple of decades. Of course, the airlines are tricking people into paying more to choose their own seats and their own, book more luggage and stuff like that. But the actual cost of the tickets are lower anyway. So economy flights are about half the price or less of what they were 30 years ago in equivalent dollars. So including inflation, they're still half or a third of the price in some cases of what they used to cost. And the number of flights measured in passenger miles has increased about 5% a year since the early 1970s. So there's basically hundreds of thousands more flights per year than there used to be. So pretty much it's within everyone's reach, more or less, to fly these days, and overseas trips are commonplace for most people in Australia. So if you don't travel overseas yourself every year, you probably know someone who does. And more people have been overseas at least once than in the 1980s and even in the 1990s. So the number of people who travel overseas as a matter of course is going up all the time. So with this increase in global tourism, what's the impact on the planet? So for some years, there were concerns about depositing carbon emissions directly in the upper atmosphere because they thought that maybe that had some effect and it was concentrating the effect of those greenhouse gas emissions. That's actually not really an issue. People realised, the atmosphere's churning around so much that it gets mixed up. So there's nothing really being deposited. So it's just swirling all around the place.
Good.
So
good to know.
So the danger of that deposition had been shown to be less worrying than people originally thought. But even in 2008, the World Trade Organization had an estimate of the greenhouse gas emissions of global tourism as a industry sector, and that figure was around 3%. So they thought that about 3% of the total emissions in the world were as a result of global tourism. But just recently, a team including researchers from the University of Sydney have analysed the real footprint of international travel and found it's much higher than anyone thought before. So the analysis looked at around 1 billion supply chains to fully capture the real impact of tourism over 160 different countries. So they didn't look at every country in the world, but 160 is a fairly good number. And they found the true figure is around 4.5 billion metric tons, or about 8% of global emissions. So they found that richer countries account for a greater contribution to this figure, but countries with rapidly growing middle classes like China and India and Brazil are also big influences on the figure. And disturbingly, there seems to be no upper limit. So basically, people travel as much as they can afford to travel, and it doesn't plateau at any point. The more money they have, the more they travel. So it just keeps going up. The richer the country gets, the more people travel, and as soon as people get above a certain level of income, they start traveling and keep increasing as it goes.
Can I ask a question? What sort of things were included in this sort of like global travel? Like, it's not just transport, is it?
No, so they obviously looked at transport as a big part of the total, and air travel plays a part, but also road and rail transport once they reach their destination.
Yeah.
And also food supply chains have a big impact.
Okay.
So obviously things like accommodation and food are things that people need regardless of where they are in the world. So you're eating and sleeping places, whether you're overseas or whether you're at home. And while you're at home,
don't they cancel one another out?
They do, except that people eat fancier food and live a fancier lifestyle while they're on holidays.
They probably end up eating more protein.
Certainly. And the population movement puts pressure on local food systems and prices for local people too. So when there's more people there, then the food gets more expensive for the people who live there all the time. So it's a bit of an issue to be concerned with. But the authors of the paper, which is published in Nature Climate Change, have suggested that carbon taxes or carbon trading is possibly the only way to curb the growth of international tourism, which is growing at a faster rate than other industry sectors and is apparently immune to economic pressure. So it basically is growing faster than international trade is growing as a sector. So they're basically saying that it doesn't get impacted by economic downturns. It's basically a global effect of that. As people get more money, they travel more, and the sector just keeps growing year to year, regardless of what else is going on. And it's one of the fastest growing economic sectors on the planet. So the authors also do suggest that traveling more slowly, as in avoiding air travel, wherever possible, and paying more for carbon offsets are ways that people can potentially have a direct impact on the total footprint of their next international holiday.
Well, we've come to the end of another episode of Lost in Science on the Community Radio Network. Thanks for joining us. If you'd like to get in touch with us, you can email us at lostinsci@gmail.com, or you can leave a comment on our blog, which is lostinscience.wordpress.com. And we're also on Facebook and Twitter if you want to look for us there. Lost in Science is recorded at the studios of 3CR in Melbourne and broadcast across Australia on the Community Radio Network with the financial assistance of the Community Broadcasting Foundation. If that's not enough information, you can tune in again next week when Chris and Stuart get Lost in Science!